let's see what hope there is for MMOs now.
We covered the recent cancellation of Project Blackbird, the MMORPG ZeniMax Online Studios had been working on over these past 7 years. Now, due to my appreciation of The Elder Scrolls Online, which I will reiterate, it's a game that definitely makes it into my top 10 favorite MMOs list, and for that reason alone, I had been eagerly awaiting the reveal of the developer's next project. So learning of its cancellation, it was a bit of a bummer. So to help turn things around a bit and lighten up the mood, I thought this might be a good time to revisit some of the other MMOs that we know are currently in development, with the hope that maybe I can will these ones into existence, like having an incantation of sorts. Doesn't work that way? Oh well, I'll do the video anyways. So today what I want to do is give an updated look at the MMOs that I'm the most hopeful for and think have the greatest potential. And to be clear, this isn't just another video going over all of these games' proposed features and content. We've done that plenty of times in the past. Instead, what I've done is gather up whatever public available information there is, specifically pertaining to how is the development going and what, if any, projected timelines do these games have? Like, when are we going to get to play them? So let's go ahead and talk about all of the upcoming MMOs that you can still...
You saw it. I saw it. We've been psyoped into believing that Guild Wars 3 is real. We've actually psyoped people into believing Guild Wars 3 is real. I feel like I should have a therapy chair and be wearing glasses and have one of those little notebooks and just be like, and this Guild Wars 3, is it in the room with us right now? Here it comes.
Still look forward to, so long as these ones too don't get canceled sometime in the next 5 years. All right, starting things off, we've got Guild Wars 3. The game looks to currently be in early production, although as of now, our only confirmation is a casual reference by the publisher during an investor call back in 2024. At the time, NCSoft was getting grilled by their investors over the company's recent poor financials, to which they responded by saying, hey, we got some good stuff in the works. Of relevance here was this quote that said, ArenaNet has a meaningful IP called Guild Wars, and after Guild Wars 2, they are currently working on Guild Wars 3. So basically,
I'm gonna be so mad if Guild Wars 3 is just like a gacha game fucking shit show. Fuck, I'm gonna be so mad.
Saying, don't worry guys, we got another Guild Wars in the pipeline. The stock portfolio is going to turn around soon. Now beyond that, there hasn't been any official announcement, no press release or anything of the sort for the game, just the acknowledgement that they are in the early stages of beginning work on the project. And it is evidently very, very early, because following reports of the game getting mentioned during that investor call, it was further clarified by the publisher that Guild Wars 3 was, quote, in the review stage and the start of development had not been finalized. Also,
so you see, that's coming from the investor call. There's no Guild Wars 3. It's not real and it can't hurt you. It doesn't exist. I don't believe it's going to exist.
ArenaNet came out making a direct statement of their own where they said, as an active game studio, we are always doing internal exploratory work for possible future titles we'd want to create. However, we have nothing to confirm right now. The team's focus is on Guild Wars 2 development, including the game's next expansion, which we're excited to talk about soon. Now again, all of this was back in March 2024, so a little over a year ago, and we have not had any further updates about a new Guild Wars game being made since then. But even assuming that Guild Wars 3 is in, let's say, pre-production right now, we're likely looking at least 5 or more years from it seeing the light.
Guild Wars 3 will be the next Terrace Land. It's going to be Terrace Land because NCSoft's going to be in control. ArenaNet's not going to get to touch it because ArenaNet keeps on not monetizing the Guild Wars 2 the way that NCSoft wants, and it's going to be like a fucking shit bucket. It's going to be like, you know how everyone fucking hates RuneScape 3 and loves OSRS? That's what's going to happen. I can see the future. It's like right here in my mind. I feel like fucking Professor X reading the mind of every NCSoft executive. That's exactly what's going to happen, and I'm going to be so mad. Look, I'm not saying this because I want to, but maybe Ted Kaczynski needs to be revived into an MMO player and send a few messages to the NCSoft team, telling them about his dissatisfaction. That's all I'm saying. Maybe that'll fix these fucking problems. I think the only hope we have for MMOs is the kind of same thing for gaming as a whole. A total crash and therefore reboot of the industry that would make investors and co leave for some time. You might be right, Barando. You might be right.
light of day. As you may have heard, there is a new Lord of the Rings MMO in development as well, coming from Amazon Game Studio. Now, I have seen
because we know Amazon Games has such a great track record.
A fair bit of confusion around this title, which I totally understand, because the game was first announced several years ago, and then it got canceled in 2021, and then in 2023, it got announced a second time. So the reason for all this back and forth is a bit messy, but basically, they initially had a deal with Leyu Technologies where they were going to co-develop this Lord of the Rings MMO together. However, in the middle of development, Leyu got purchased by Tencent, and then after that buyout, Tencent and Amazon failed to come to terms on financial agreements. Basically, they couldn't agree on who got what amount of money, and so the project got canceled. And then a few years later, Amazon themselves struck a new deal directly with Middle-earth Enterprises, and this one did get the official stamp of approval. They're not co-developing with anyone else, it's just internal.
How many of you are willing to bet that it's going to be a Lord of the Rings game based around the Rings of Power? That it's not going to be like anything else but that. What do you think the percentage chance is? That Galadriel is going to be a strong black woman in a wheelchair. Climbing a mountain in metal armor. That the first thing you're going to hear in the trailer is going to be a strong, independent orc is talking. So listen and learn. All orcs are going to be analogous to minorities. Celebrimbo is gonna just be the most racist elf ever, and he's gonna be like made into like the bad guy. Did you watch Ironheart? I watched I read Ironheart. I read the comics of Ironheart, and after that, I can't stand any more Ironheart. I also watched Critical Drinker's video on it, and it's a perfect one-to-one replica. Amazon being involved in the game is an instant dead on arrival. Well, they've proven that. That's not even like a spicy statement to say, Sayonara. That's just the fucking truth at this point. Ah, yes, Cambodian orcs, bring them. It's not even going to be Cambodian orcs. It's going to be like fucking Central African orcs. And you're going to know some stupid fuck in that office is in charge of that when the orc like first appears on screen and goes, "Why are them dear white boys blocking us from getting into Mordor?" "What do you mean build a wall?" When the first orc you see, his name is Makunku, and you're gonna be like, what the fuck? That's not how Tolkien built the world. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. The only good hobbit is gonna be Smeagol. Because he fought the power. I know what the thing is, right? Like, Tolkien even put in his universe that there were men from distant lands, right? Like the ones riding the Oliphants and stuff that were of different skin colors and races and shit. And they're like adjacent to the world he knows because he didn't grow up in those worlds. And you could very, very easily like add that into an MMO, and that instead they're gonna make all black people orcs. It's happening. It's fucking happening. They can't help themselves. I could see the future on this one. I've been holding on to that Palantir for a little bit too long. Smeagol the trans vegetal sexual Jewish revolutionary hobbit. You say that as a joke, but it's gonna be real. D&D already made orcs black people. Oh man, I can see how it's gonna go. I can see it already. I can see it's gonna be about the Rings of Power. Galadriel's gonna be a strong black woman. Elrond's gonna be like the most racist white man in existence. Like, unbearably racist. He's not even gonna have pointy ears. He's just gonna be a white guy who's angry. Be like, get them fucking orcs! He's gonna have like an Alabaman accent. I can see it coming already. The Numenorians, all of them. Oh, they're not gonna be Numenorians, they're gonna be Nubenorians. That's the important part. They're just gonna be like black people pretending to be Egyptians. I can see it. I can see it in my head. It's so clear. And the name of the MMO is going to be called Lord Demrangs. I know it's happening.
To Amazon, and so now they're back in business. And as of 2023, yes, Amazon Games has been working on that new Lord of the Rings MMO. So we know the game is going to feature stories from The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings literary trilogy, and that's basically all we know. Now, I think it's also safe to assume that it's going to build off of the framework and any lessons learned with the other MMO that Amazon has developed, that being New World. They've published a couple of others, but New World is the only one that Amazon Game Studios themselves developed from scratch. So there are probably going to be some similarities with the New World's framework structure. Again, all of the lessons learned that will be taken into and improved upon, obviously, ideally, in this Lord of the Rings game. Now, the most recent news that we got on the game came late last year. In an interview with Variety, Amazon Games VP was asked when we could expect to hear more about their upcoming project, to which he replied by saying, "It's not going to be tomorrow, but it's not too far away. As I said, we're getting into a much more regular cadence of shipping games. That's all I'm allowed to tell you right now. It's all about quality. You don't want to just be rushed out. That doesn't work. It has to be AAA quality because the bar is so high."
The most scary thing about him saying that is the words, "it has to be AAA quality." I can't wait for the Lord of the Rings MMO MSQ where we stop the elves from genociding the orcs. Yeah, they just misunderstood.
See, they're already learning lessons from New World. They're pretty much saying, hey, you know what? We have some experience with shipping games too early in the past. It didn't go all too well, so we're hoping to not repeat that mistake. Now, a couple months after that interview, he had another interview with IGN where he said, the game is still early. It's a big IP. It's a big game. I know you're going to fish now probably every little word and try to read into it, but honestly, it's too early to read into every little word. We're still trying to find the hook, find the idea of what it is, because we don't just want to go and do the same thing over. While it's tempting sometimes with an existing IP, that's not the point of doing it. You've got to find a fresh twist, and we're
How hilarious would it be if they just reskinned New World and released it? I wouldn't even be mad. I'd just be impressed at the fucking goal of them doing that.
Still, I think, in that period where we really want to find out what could be the thing which is different to all other games out there. So it's a little bit early. Now, this was in August of last year. So once more, this is another MMO where we're saying the game is probably at least 5 or so years out before we see it. Add it to the growing list. There's more of those coming in the rest of this video as well. The Warhammer MMO being made by Jackalyptic Games. That is apparently still in
God, I hope this one's good.
Production as well. Although this one, unfortunately, might be on shaky ground. And I say that because back in January, the company's partner studio, Counterplay Games, got shut down. Then in March, rumors began circulating that NetEase was looking to sell the studio as part of a larger plan to divest in overseas companies. And while that hasn't yet happened, the following month...
Okay, so it's dead in the water. Fuck. There goes the Warhammer MMO. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Goodbye. Bye-bye, Warhammer. It was nice knowing you. You fucking franchise that touches everything except the MMO world. You know in like the star map of Warhammer, there's that like one fucking void, the Eye of Terror, that nothing touches. That's what MMOs are. That's exactly what MMOs are. They're the fucking Eye of Terror.
Month in April, we did see layoffs at Jackalyptic Games. Now, there has been no announcement of the game's cancellation, but none of that just mentioned stuff is great news, obviously. Now, the last official word we heard about the game was back in 2023 when they originally announced the project, followed by a press tour with several interviews. We still don't know which iteration of Warhammer it's going to be, whether it's Fantasy 40K or otherwise. We just know it is Warhammer, it is going to be an MMO, and hopefully it hasn't been canceled. I will add one thing, though, that there were reports from earlier in this year, during a time when Jackalyptic was looking for some additional funding, and they were showing off the game in that process. At that time, it apparently received, quote, positive reception from potential partners, which is actually a pretty good sign. And I really hope this one doesn't get canceled, as there's just so much.
I think they need to go fantasy. I think they need to go fantasy Warhammer. I think if they go 40k, they're going to be in trouble. I think they'll fuck it up too much if they go 40k. the fantasy side of Warhammer will bring in more of the old school MMO nerds, whereas Warhammer is such an all-encompassing series that I think if they went for the 40K version, it's going to end up as more of an FPS than anything else. And it's going to have too many limiting systems. Whereas, like, the fantasy series, you have the Skaven, you have, like, the elves, you have the dwarves, the chaos dwarves. You can go in so many different directions with that. And you don't have to worry about overarching plot lines like the God Emperor of Mankind and shit like that. Fantasy Warhammer works better for an MMO. I agree. I think they've got way better systems that they could use in Fantasy Warhammer than they could use in the actual current 40K timeline.
I love about Warhammer. It's such a great setting and IP, whatever Warhammer iteration they choose from, whether it was fantasy or 40K or otherwise. Warhammer is a cool setting for any MMO, so fingers crossed this one makes it through the development process and eventually into our hands. Rumor has it that Daybreak Games is currently working on another new full-blown EverQuest MMO. This comes from an investor call back in 2023 when the company shared their plans for upcoming first-party releases. On their list was a new EverQuest, and the detailed breakdown of it said this would be a fantasy MMORPG. Of course, it was being developed by Daybreak Games. It would be a live service with a hybrid premium and microtransaction business model.
MechWarrior is the game that just released, right? This is the game that just released that, like, I've heard such mixed reviews about this. Some people say it's amazing. Some people say, fuck this game, I hate it so much. What concerns me is this, hybrid premium plus MTX. This makes me think it's just going to be a shit show. This really concerns me. Oh, let's see if we hear more.
This model, our favorite, and it was going to cost them apparently roughly $30 million to make, which sounds low for an MMO, like exceptionally low. But the one thing I'm not sure about is if this was the cost that they were proposing to these particular investors, and the total funding for the MMO might be much larger, but they were asking these investors at that time for $30 million.
30 mil is not enough. It sounds like a lot of money. That's nothing in MMO development. 300 mil is more realistic.
Or whatever. Other thing worth noting here on this list is that the game evidently had a target release of 2028. And it looks like their proposal did go forward and is currently underway. In an interview last November, Daybreak executive producer Jen Chan shared some details on the project, saying that active work on a new I
think you think of Mecha Break. Yeah, you're probably right. Mecha Break's the one that's just released, right? That's the like, I've heard people yelling that, I just know that it's a mech game, right? Where you play as a mecha, and I've heard people yelling that it's like over monetized as shit. And I've heard other people saying that it's an amazing game. Add Bitcoin system. Sure. Yeah, that's Mecha Break. Yeah, then I'm confusing it. That's me fucking it up. It all just blends together in the end.
EverQuest game was in fact happening, although they aren't calling it EverQuest 3 given the relative failures of EverQuest 2. Instead, they're kind of thinking of it and referring to it as a rebooting of the original with modern graphics, updated gameplay, and a new visual style, all while feeling familiar to the first game. Now that said, again, it's still in early production. Specifically at the time of the interview, they said that the game was in the concept phase, so even that 2028 release target window seems very unlikely. We might be looking at another 2030 at the earliest MMO. It's great, dude. The genre, just loving it, right? Riot's League of Legends based Runeterra MMO, that is still alive and kicking. You may
that's gonna be released in like 20 like 100. We're gonna all be dead in the fucking ground by then. Or we're gonna have like uploaded our consciousness to the fucking game in order to play it.
I've heard a while back about the game restarting development as they scrapped some several years of work to start fresh from scratch. The reason given was that they felt the game was too similar to existing MMORPGs, and they really wanted it to be more than the same old thing with a League of Legends coat of paint. And
Hello,
so they started over.
Now in that old man.
What's up, Edward?
Process, several top developers left the company. Riot also saw a round of layoffs, or two, and they said that they would be going dark on the project for some while. Still, it does seem like they are indeed making progress. In fact, just earlier this year, when asked if he thought MMOs were still worth pursuing, Riot's Mark Merrill said, "Oh yeah, and it's probably the project I personally spend the most time on as well," going on to add, "I can go through all of the laundry lists of why it's hard, but you know, I think Riot's exactly the type of company that should go after these types of opportunities if we're trying to make it better for the player. And with the League unique IP we've been investing so much for so long over time, sort of growing this world and adding dimensions.
This is exactly what I mean when I say if you're going to have a story-based MMO, you got to have something that backs it up. You have to have like some backing system where you can actually just lift from existing games. You've got all the story built and you just need to put it in your MMO. If you don't have that, you can't have the story where you just tell people this is the world and this is the story and shit like that. They could pull it off, but I don't know if they will. I'm concerned that they're going to fuck it up.
People want to run around in the world of Runeterra, and so we want to help them do that in ways that are worth it and meaningful to them. So yes, it does seem like the game is still in development. It still exists, but once more, many, many years from releasing. You might remember Corepunk, that top-down MMO that plays like a MOBA. The game actually entered early access last November, if you hadn't heard, and since then it has been moving along with some regular updates.
I played this a little while. It's not bad, but the problem is it's so slow. It's so fucking molasses slow to watch the gameplay. What's up, Reputed? Hold on. Got Rose perving about Janthia for a month in Guild Wars 2. Can't wait. One day I'll get there. 70 years from now.
In fact, I jumped in recently and was actually pretty impressed with some of the changes they had made. The core game is still everything that I remember. It is still a relatively slow and methodical MMO, but there's also been a ton of quality of life improvements from, again, the last time that I had played it. Loot actually drops now, like on a regular basis. In prior tests, I think it took me like 10 hours before I was able to craft my first weapon, and now weapons drop all of the time, even in higher rarities too. Same goes with the gear, known as implants or artifacts. This is basically where most of your character power comes from. Previously, you had to either craft or purchase these. Now they are consistently dropping from enemies' chest and quest rewards. Also, I'm like 99.9% sure that at some point they increased the movement speed in the game as well. It seems to have been boosted by like 10 or 15%. On top of that, you also get your first mount around level 7, just a few hours in. They finally added out of combat health and mana regeneration. It did exist prior, but only when you were above 90% health or mana. Now, whenever you leave combat, you get a little bit of mana return, and then you can accelerate it with food and drink. Resources and items are dropping much more frequently. They're just far more abundant, and that is just scratching the surface of some of the quality of life updates that I've noticed in the couple of days that I've played so far. Now, beyond all that, there also looks to be a lot more.
It seems like, you know what, this game needs to lean way more into like a League of Legends kind of style as an MMO to try and survive. Because what they've got right now, it's too slow, it's too clunky, it's too non-methodical. But it's too methodical and non-action packed. But the issue is they've also already released their game, essentially, which means they've lost any of that. Like, here's a bunch of hype that's going to bring this MMO towards something impressive. I really had hopes for this game because it looked interesting and unique. Fell off fucking hard.
More content, new areas, new activities, dungeons, PvP modes, and more. All around, the reason I'm saying all this is just like, I've been impressed coming back to this, the progress they've made throughout the months of early access. I'm planning to plug away and play a bunch more over this next week, and I will be doing an updated look at the game at some time soon. That said, I will add one major hurdle that they have yet to clear is the fact that the game is not on Steam. I know that when I streamed the game the other day, no exaggeration, like every 4th or 5th comment was people asking, is this game on Steam yet? And the answer is no. So while yes, it is technically playable.
And they need to get it on Steam. Having it on a separate client, such a fail. Such a bad fucking idea. From what I looked at Corepunk, it's more like a survival game than an MMO. No, it's way more like an MMO than it is a survival game. It's much more like a top-down kind of MMO than it is a survival game. It's got all the base systems of it. It's just, I don't think the world is populated enough for it to feel like an MMO. That's the issue.
Right now, if you are waiting for a Steam release, we are still in the dark about if and when that will be happening. I think it's in the developer's best interest. In fact, my suggestion would be keep improving the game, make it as good as you can, add more content, continue to work on the quality of life, and then when you eventually hit 1.0, a Steam release is going to give you the greatest chance of success. Light No Fire. Okay, this one isn't a traditional MMO, but it is claiming to be one massive shared world where you're going to run into other players. If you're in the same space, you will see other people. No phasing or instancing, from what I understand. They're also claiming that this is going to be one massive, like real life size massive planet. And yeah, I mean, if all in a fantasy world, that sounds interesting. Either way, yeah, it looks like
I have never heard of this. Oh, it's by fucking, it's by the guys who made No Man's Sky. Let's hope they don't lie to us a second time. Let's hope they just start off good. They made No Man's Sky fantastic after lying a bunch of times. Let's see if they actually manage to pull this off. It would be nice if they just made it good from day one, instead of having to recover.
They at least fall into the shared world or MMO light category, and that leaves me keen to see more. Now, as for recent news, nothing, zilch. Like, they announced the game in late 2023, they did a couple of interviews, but it has been dead silent ever since. All the while, they have been trucking away with consistent updates for their other game, No Man's Sky, and I know there's a lot of anticipation for this next game. I know that personally, I love the idea of a fantasy spin on the No Man's Sky formula. They're also said to be leaning more into the survival crafting element with much improved combat as well.
There it is. There it is. There's the words that hurt my soul. This is not an MMO. It's going to be a survival crafting game. There it is. Yep.
It is a fantasy game with sword and sorcery. You'll be swinging swords and casting spells, all with this action combat system, and I really hope they nail it. That would be awesome. Hope amongst the community is that we get some sort of an update in the next few months, but really that's all it is as of now. Hope. There's been no tease that will be happening. On the plus side, though, the game is rumored for a 2026 release window, so if that happens, that would be pretty nice. Also, I want to mention Soulframe here as well. I genuinely have really enjoyed what I've played of this.
This is not an MMO. We've got what I consider to be 2 games now that are not MMOs. Corepunk, sure. Runeterra, sure. When I'm 5 million years old, that'll release. Lord of the Rings, maybe never releasing. And Guild Wars 3 is not real, so...
this game so far. While it isn't also a full-blown MMORPG, instead it is once more a shared world or MMO-like game, you are still going to see other people much in the same way you do in something like Destiny. So they're currently in active development running public playtests referred to as preludes on a fairly regular basis. The last time I played a few months ago, this consisted of a couple of days worth of content, maybe a week if I'm being generous. It had one large open island to explore, dotted with all sorts of POIs, enemy camps and underground dungeons, multiple weapons and different playstyles to mess around with, and then a few tracks of progression and collectible cosmetic unlocks. I think the world building in this thing is fantastic. I love the look of the game. Combat does need some tune-up, but it's not terrible, and it does appear to be getting better with subsequent updates. In fact, they're currently on the 9th or 10th round of Prelude testing. I think I was playing on the 4th or 5th, and most recently they had an update video for the current Preludes test with some new magic weapons and improved combat, and it's looking like it's shaping up quite nicely. I'm definitely going to be revisiting the game at some point, maybe soon. I'd like to see some of the new updates for myself, and I'm also, I'll say it, I'm pretty confident that when all is said and done, this is probably going to be a game I like. Like, I've really enjoyed it.
It might be a game you like, but it's not an MMO.
And just the limited amount of content that I've played in what's currently available for testing. I do think there's a good chance that they could repeat the success that they had with Warframe here, which would be quite impressive. In terms of release, we do know that they were initially targeting a 2025 launch, but if that happens, it would 100% be under the early access banner because the game is still in technically alpha phase. But as of today, no exact dates have been set. A couple of honorable mentions I want to talk about here. Ashes of Creation. You know, I continue to want to be excited for this game, but every time I jump back in to play it for these tests that they have, something just doesn't.
Listen to this man. Listen to Mr. Ultra Positive here. Not even he. And this is an indictment. Is that Mr. Positive force gaming himself doesn't feel great about Ashes. I can't wait for the Pirate Software video where Pirate takes a shit on force gaming. That's like beating up a golden retriever. And it's just another reason that he's going to get his shit pushed in again.
Doesn't quite click for me. Nevertheless, I am holding out hope that it all comes together as they get nearer the finish line. And when will that be? Well, anyone's guess, really. Certainly doesn't appear like it's going to be anytime soon, given the current state of content in the game compared to what they've proposed launching the 1.0 finished version with. It looks like they're a far ways off, although everyone keeps telling me that they are in a phase of development where Intrepid will be cranking out content faster than you can believe, which, okay, yeah, I don't believe it. But then they're also saying that I shouldn't believe it, so you're...
No, but you don't understand. They need to make more cash shop skins to sell you. They need to draw more pretty pictures on their website to sell you. They need to charge you another $500 for a fucking alpha key so you can playtest their game. God damn it.
Move, I guess. I don't know, dude. You know, this thing pulls directly from ArcAge, which was one of my all-time favorites. So for that reason alone, I'm rooting for them. Like, let's go, Steven. I hope your dreams come true and this thing is a massive success. In terms of that release, the game is currently in alpha 2 to be exact. I'm guessing 2028 at the earliest for 1.0, probably later. Although, again, it is one of those games where you can technically play right now if you're willing to fork up $100. I would suggest waiting. Stars Reach. You know, I was a little iffy on this game originally, but honestly, the more that I've seen, the more I've liked it. Now, they recently released videos of...
Man, this just looks like fucking God, this looks like some alternate universe Wildstar to me. Just because of the character models.
Some graphical improvements they've made, and the game is looking far better already, even in its early stages, on top of the fact that they do have some neat systems and features. This is said to be a sci-fi sandbox MMO that pulls inspiration from the likes of Star Wars Galaxies. Go anywhere, do anything. They got a player-driven economy, housing, action combat, and a, quote, simulated living galaxy for us to explore. The game is right now in active development. They have already run a few play tests.
I can tell if they don't limit the beam stuff there, where there's building, people are just going to be drawing dicks on everything.
That I think lasted like a day at a time, and
if not everyone, I will.
They're targeting some persistent 24/7 alpha testing to start sometime in the coming months. Definitely keeping my eye on this, and we'll check it out myself. Another MMO in very early development that I'm keeping an eye on is Ghost, the project from Fantastic Pixel Castle. They've had a really
What is this? It looks so familiar. Hold on. There's a game. There's a metaverse game. There was a complete fucking scam. The characters look so similar to that, and I can't remember what it's called. I thought it was Earth 2. But this looks so familiar. Maybe it's not Earth 2. But something about these character models sets me off.
Open process, going as far as to show us some super pre-alpha prototype builds with very stripped down visuals and releasing lengthy blog posts diving into their design philosophies. One thing I'm not so sure about with this game is the emphasis on the procedural world generation for about half of its content. So to set clear expectations, this isn't an MMO that's going to have one massive...
This isn't an MMO, that's all I needed to hear.
Predefined open world to explore. Rather, it's broken up into two different zone types called blue zones and red zones, and you load into these areas. So the blue zones are apparently more survival, crafty, sandboxy with some roguelite elements in there, whereas the red zone...
It's Earth 2. This looks like Earth 2.
Zones are more traditional, handcrafted areas that will feel much more like the zones you're used to in traditional MMORPGs. So when playing Ghost, apparently we're spending our time going back and forth to these areas, loading into a blue zone, doing some stuff, leaving, then going into a red zone, back and forth and back and forth. Now, honestly, I haven't dove that deep into this particular game, like I don't know much more about it beyond that, but I have liked their concept art, some of the ideas that I have seen, and I'm hoping it turns out well. The game is in pre-alpha probably, definitely is a long ways away from release. So again, don't expect this anytime soon. There is apparently still hope for that Horizon MMO that we've talked about in the past.
God, please, no, cancel this one. Cancel this shit. Look, I don't understand people's obsession with Horizon being a good game. I don't see it. I played them. Fuck, I can't see it. The world, the fantasy, the idea of it is so good. And the game itself is... Oh, man, it's just the same fucking game that I've been playing in AAA games for like the last 25 years.
Now, this was rumored to be canceled by NCSoft. That started circulating earlier in the year, but then later got clarified that the canceled game wasn't actually the Horizon MMO, but instead was another game that went by Project H internally. Big question mark here. Absolutely uncertain. No idea. It may have been X'd. It may still exist, but again, I did want to mention it. Also, IO Interactive, the studio behind the massively successful Hitman games, they are working on what looks to be an MMO Lite. A couple of years ago, they revealed Project Fantasy, and to quote
MMO Lite, so not an MMO.
The announcement, we are building a new world, a new IP, an online fantasy RPG, a world and a game built from the core to entertain players and expand for many years to come. So they say the game is inspired by the fighting fantasy books many of us grew up reading, compelling you to choose your own path, be it alone, against wizards, lizards, and thief kings, and that combined with the togetherness, camaraderie, and agony and delight found around the tabletop. Now, given how great those Hitman games are, I think just the pitch alone is enough for me.
So, this is my problem. All of these game companies keep on using the fucking title MMO. And they don't need it. They don't need it. They can make a really good game and it not be an MMO. But they keep relying on the fucking title. And it pisses me the fuck off. You're just sexist. Yes. I'm unashamed to say that Aloy made me sexist. Every time I play Horizon, I let the robots fucking kill her. Because she deserves it. You know what the real 100% headcanon gameplay of Horizon Zero Dawn is to me? Aloy goes out into the world and gets killed by the first robo fucking deer in existence. And then I turn off the game and I say, good game, 10 out of 10.
If they are making an online multiplayer fantasy game in a shared world, I am interested. This was initially revealed in 2023, and hopefully we learn more sometime soon. Now, it probably goes without saying, but this isn't an exhaustive list of every upcoming MMO. Check out our list that has become an annual tradition for like the past 10 years or something if you want a more exhaustive breakdown. These are just the ones that are most on my radar currently. There's actually quite a fair few more in development games, but I did want to focus on the ones near the top of my personal list, or more specifically, the games that are in development that I am theoretically most interested in, and praying.
Okay, so let's see. Not an MMO. Not an MMO. Well, maybe an MMO. Earth 2. Not an MMO. An MMO that's always going to be an alpha. Not an MMO. Not an MMO. Potentially might be an MMO. MMO. MMO that's coming out in 500 years. MMO. MMO maybe that might get cancelled. MMO that's definitely going to be based off of the Rings of Power. In some way, they'll find a way to fuck it up. And then doesn't really exist and is a schizophrenic hallucination of people who want a new MMO.
Get canceled before we get the chance to check them out. It is quite a shame that many of the games on this list look to be at least 3, 4, or 5+ years away, such is the state of the MMORPG genre. But there you go, that does it for today. The look at some of the MMOs you can still look forward to after the cancellation of ZOS's Blackbird, which I think it's gonna hurt for a while. Man, the game that they were making sounded really interesting, but we got some other games that also sound interesting, and hopefully these ones don't get canceled. Fingers crossed, right? Thanks, that's it for today. Appreciate you guys. I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.
God damn it. God fucking damn it. This man has to pad his videos with not MMO.